Welcome to CN Live, Season 3, Episode 8, Palestine, 20 Years Later. I'm Joe Loria, the Editor-in-Chief of Consortium News. On today's show, acclaimed journalist and filmmaker John Pilger discusses the changes that have come over Palestine in the past 20 years since the making of his film, Palestine is Still the Issue, released first in 1974 and updated in 2002. The past 2 decades have seen an extreme turn to the right in Israeli politics, with grave consequences for Palestine and its quest for independence, including 4 major Israeli attacks against Gaza. Since John's film, Israel also walled in the Palestinians on the West Bank. The Oslo Accords definitively failed. The Second Intifada ended with thousands killed. Yasser Arafat died, and Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year reign moved Israel even further to the right. We'll begin tonight's show with a full screening of John Pilger's 52-minute classic documentary, followed by a discussion with Pilger and Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, who appeared in the 2002 film. They will discuss the worsening situation over the decades for Palestinians and where the future of Palestine and Israel is headed. Pappé is the author of many books, including The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, in which he documents that indeed ethnic cleansing was a long-standing Zionist goal that was planned in detail by David Ben-Gurion in the Red House headquarters outside Tel Aviv, and included a much greater number of atrocities against Palestinians in the establishment of Israel in the late 1940s than is generally recognized. Pappé says it was the start of a process of ethnic cleansing that continues until today unbroken from those earliest days. About that book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, Publishers Weekly wrote, denied for almost 6 decades, had it happened today, it could only have been called ethnic cleansing, decisively debunking the myth that the Palestinian population left of their own accord in the course of this war. Ilan Pappé offers impressive archival evidence to demonstrate that from its very inception, a central plank in Israel's founding ideology was the forcible removal of the indigenous population. The book, Publishers Weekly says, is indispensable for anyone interested in the current crisis in the Middle East. And now, the film Palestine is Still the Issue by John Pilger.
There is only one way of ending this. It's ending occupation. Because occupation has become the cancer that is eating the lives of both people.
What the occupation did for us, it reduced us into animals in a way that sometimes I'm ashamed to say that I'm in Israel.
This is, a huge bluff of the Israeli establishment, that every, criticism of its policy is anti-Semitism.
Sometimes I feel pity for the Israeli mothers, because they are thinking that the soldiers or their sons are victorious soldiers. But they should come and see what their soldiers are doing here.
25 years ago, I made a film called Palestine is Still the Issue. It was about a nation of people, the Palestinians, forced off their land and later subjected to a military occupation by Israel, an occupation condemned by the United Nations and almost every country in the world, including Britain. But Israel is backed by a very powerful friend, the United States. So in 25 years, if we're to speak of the great injustice here, nothing has changed. What has changed is that the Palestinians have fought back. Stateless and humiliated for so long, they've risen up against Israel's huge military machine, although they themselves have no army, no tanks, no American planes and gunships or missiles. Some have committed desperate acts of terror, like suicide bombing. But for Palestinians, the overriding routine terror, day after day, has been the ruthless control of almost every aspect of their lives, as if they live in an open prison. This film is about the Palestinians and a group of courageous Israelis united in the oldest human struggle to be free.
Last April, troops and tanks of the Israeli army attacked Ramallah and other towns in occupied Palestine. This was reported as an incursion to stop terrorism. In fact, it was also an attack on civilian life, on schools, offices, clinics, theaters, radio stations. This systematic vandalism is typical of one of the longest military occupations in modern times. Even the Culture Ministry was destroyed. The director, Liana Badri, a distinguished novelist and filmmaker, showed me the devastation shortly after it had happened.
This is the administration room. We had a lot of files here.
Yeah.
You can see that everything were broken. It was the best place in the ministry.
I mean, what you did here was promote projects for Palestinian culture, basically. Filmmaking, projects for children.
Exhibitions, book exhibitions, painters exhibitions, festivals, dance, folklore. We had a lot of projects. Now we don't have anything to begin. We don't have computers, equipment, furniture, and we have this feeling of humiliation.
The smell is awful, isn't it? Look at
Smell
this.
is awful, yes.
This is a bag of shit, and there's shit smeared all over the photocopier.
Two.
So they just ate and
Bags of shit
defecated in the same place.
Yes, and putting them on the photocopy, putting the shit everywhere, even on the walls. And you can see that we have two toilets in every floor, but they didn't use the toilet. All the time they were making it on the floor or anywhere, as you can see.
We have a look in this room in here. Good grief. Look at this. These are children's drawings, aren't they?
Yes. This is the room specialized for children's work, children's paintings and children's culture, and to encourage them to paint, to let them express themselves, to make competition, writing competitions. But you can see how they destroyed everything. They don't respect anything. They just want to come and destroy, and this is the systematic terrorism of the Israeli state.
For the Palestinians, this cultural vandalism means a deliberate intention to destroy them as a nation. The heart of the conflict here is a struggle for land, for the hills and valleys of Palestine, for precious water and fertile soil. During the early 20th century, the great majority of the population of Palestine were Palestinian Arabs. In 1948, Israel was founded in the shadow of the Holocaust. For the Palestinians, this meant the loss of 78% of their country. Today, they are seeking only the remaining 22% of their homeland. For 35 years, that homeland has been dominated by Israel. In 1987, the Palestinians rose up in what they call Intifada. History will surely call it a war of national liberation. They fought mainly with slingshots against tanks and planes, and they were put down with this kind of brutality. Israeli soldiers deliberately breaking the bones of prisoners. Some of the soldiers later insisted they were carrying out official Israeli policy. Two years ago, the Palestinians rose up a second time. This was hardly surprising. During curfews, people live under a form of house arrest. Without notice, they can be locked inside their homes. Their ordinary lives are a maze of controls, roadblocks, checkpoints. This is how I remembered apartheid South Africa. The hidden effect is the same: humiliation and anger and death. This Palestinian woman knows how devastating the impact of checkpoints can be. Last October, she was about to give birth to her second child, and she and her husband set out for the nearby hospital. They were stopped at an Israeli roadblock where they pleaded to be let through.
هم بقوا 6 7 يعني منهم كلمة ولا كلمة دفشوه دفش جوز فهذاك ضربه في البرودة الثاني ورمى عليه الهوية فعودنا رجعنا على سبيل إنه يعني مزاجهم كرايب فما رضوش من ننزلها مشي ما رضوش ساعتها خلفت كانت حماتي معاي فهي قطعت حبل السرة في شفرة ويوعي الولد يعني ضل يوعي الولد فعاود لفه بجاكيته ولفينا عن طريق كرمزان اتصل في سيارة من كرايبة شوفير عودنا طلعنا لما وصلنا المستشفى الفرنساوي اللي هو الولد متوفي.
Stories like Fatima's seldom make headlines, and yet many similar cases have been documented.
ليش بيسووا فينا هيك مش عارفين احنا يعني. ايش بالنسبة لي أنا شو بيني وبينهم مع كل الشعب الفلسطيني. عندهم يعني تأخذين شو الكلمة كلب يحووا ولا يحووا عربي.
Palestinians try to lead a normal life, but life is never normal. During Israeli